What is up, everybody? Thank you for stopping by to talk a couple of CJ Stroud Dynasty trades. This is post Week 10 leading into Week 11. If you want to go ahead and skip directly to that first of the three deals, go ahead and do that in the time cards. But first, I want to say my name is Chu. Check me out on Twitter and here, of course, on YouTube at Father Dynasty. If you want to go ahead and like this video, I would greatly appreciate it. If you wanted to like it and you don't really like it, I won't know the difference, so it's okay. And if you do truly like it, and if you also, want to look forward to those podcast episodes that's talking a little bit of fatherhood and fantasy football, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and you will, I believe, be notified. That's what I understand. But jumping ahead to talking about CJ Stroud. So this is, again, after Week 10, leading into Week 11. CJ Stroud, an absolute stud. As many in the fantasy and just general football community have been touting, maybe CJ Stroud should be considered for Rookie of the Year, and if not, MVP. I'd say Rookie of the Year, I think, is pretty clear-cut at this point. MVP, it may be a bit of a stretch, but we do have plenty of season left, and I think that, it's certainly a possibility. I don't know if it's likely. Regardless, that does certainly speak to how well he's done in fantasy to this point. So after Week 10, we've got CJ Stroud at 19.9 fantasy points per game, and that is on par with, quite literally, someone you may have heard of. His name is Patrick Mahomes, or some people call him Pat, I guess. So pretty incredible to be on that sort of a pace this late into the season. It's no fluke. It's no farce. He's had a tremendous season. When we're coming into the year, there was the talk of between C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, a little bit of Will Levis, although I know he tumbled to the second, so he was somewhat of an afterthought when you compare it to the first trio I mentioned. And to this point, Bryce Young has been just crumbling amidst what seems to be a pretty atrocious offense in terms of how it's schemed and just the general weaponry he has at his helm. And C.J. Stroud, again, I'm not saying he has a Jamar Chase and a T. Higgins, but I think he's, Nico Collins has been in the league for a couple of years at this point. Tank Dell, of course, is an undersized rookie, and I think he's utilized them pretty damn well. Not to discount, Dalton Schultz, and the rushing game actually has not been that tremendous for the Texans, but C.J. Stroud has put the team on his back. And speaking of how well he's done, he's got 5 top 12 finishes in fantasy, and of course he has his 5-touchdown, almost 500 passing yard outburst in Week 9. I believe that was against the Buccaneers. So again, that was of course a quarterback one performance as the quarterback one. Looking at where he's at on Keep Trade Cut, he is the quarterback 4. That has him one behind Josh Allen, the turnover machine as of this past week, and one ahead of Joe Burrow at quarterback 5. In my dynasty rankings, I do have him as quarterback 8. Again, still top 10, still strong, but still, I'm often a bit slower to kind of, jump to those conclusions. I want to see, things continue, things develop to see what's really going to happen. Not thinking he can't make it to QB4, QB5, what have you, but again, just a bit more conservative in that thought. And again, want to check out more of those rankings, go ahead to goingfor2.com at my rankings and plenty of other dynasty rankings of other people on that site, as well as weekly rankings, of course, for those people that are playing throughout the season and looking for that edge. Hopefully I'm a good ranker, and you let me know. But jumping into the first deal related to CJ Stroud. So we've got a 12-team start 9 PPR half-point tight end premium. Justin Herbert, Daniel Jones, and Darren Waller, added with a 2024 first and a 2024 third. All of that for CJ Stroud, Tank Bigsby, Desmond Ridder, and a 2024 second. To me, this seems like a gross exaggeration or a gross infatuation, if you will, with what CJ Stroud has done thus far. You have to believe so strongly in CJ Stroud in this deal to take that side, in my opinion. Tank Bigsby, he's been much of an afterthought with what has gone on thus far in the Jaguars' backfield. You've got Desmond Ridder, who has since lost his job to Taylor Heineke. He honestly may get it back, but, I mean, even after this season, what does that really mean? And, of course, you have the second in there. But when you look at the other side, and you've got Justin Herbert, again, someone else who, if much of the fantasy community is seeing CJ Stroud as a top 5 quarterback in Dynasty, I would say so is Justin Herbert. Daniel Jones, obviously, he's gone down. He's out for the season. And even if in this trade you kind of chalk him up to he's not going to come back, he's never going to be anything substantial, anything meaningful. Waller, of course, is still injured as of this moment. He's not a wash, in my opinion. But he is older. He's battled a couple injuries the last couple of seasons, so his value is not what it used to be. And if you pair on there a 2024 first and then, of course, the 2024 third, it's the Justin Herbert side by a landslide, in my opinion. Again, I love what CJ Stroud has done. Love that he's done all of this in his rookie season on a team that I think many people did not expect much out of, and has brought new life to Nico Collins, has introduced Tank Dell into the NFL in a major way, with Tank Dell having a couple of tremendous weeks for fantasy. But when you look at that side, I mean, outside of Stroud, it's Tank Bigsby, it's Desmond Ridder. The second is nice, but I mean, when you see the other side, if I really just look at it as, even if you're seeing this as basically Justin Herbert in a 2024 first for CJ Stroud in a 2024 second, give me Herbert in the first. Like, what are we doing? And that also includes Daniel Jones if he comes back, Darren Waller if he comes back healthy at some point. He, of course, will have either probably DeVito throwing to him, so that doesn't mean much. But yeah, comfortably, Justin Herbert, don't overreact. It's Justin Herbert, that side all the way. Going to deal number 2. So we've got a 12-team start 10 half PPR, half tight end premium. This one's a little bit shorter here. So we've got CJ Stroud, we've got Alec Pierce, and we've got a 2024 second. And all of that for Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Zach Wilson, and a 2025 first. So this one's a bit different because I will very much take the CJ Stroud side on this one. Yes, each side has its quarterback, but one is an up-and-coming ascendant talent at the position. The other one is simply starting because the 39-year-old starter tore his Achilles and will very possibly be back by Christmas. Regardless of when that actually happens, of when Aaron Rodgers comes back, again, even if he doesn't actually come back this season, the Jets don't make the playoffs, I do believe he's going to come back next season. I'd be hard-pressed to think he's going to go out like that, even if he just is back next year, and then that's it. I don't really know what the future holds for Zach Wilson when it comes to the NFL. I'm also very confused with how Robert Saleh has just continued to have Zach Wilson's back. Not for the sake that you wouldn't want to have the starting quarterbacks back, but why does he not do something different? Why is it not another quarterback that they could bring in? Again, there was the talk that, Carson Wentz going to the LA Rams, and there was talks that the Jets had the opportunity and they passed on it in some way. I don't know what that means exactly. If Carson Wentz contacted them or they just could have, but they didn't. I don't get it. Zach Wilson, in terms of fantasy, has not done much, and that was him being the de facto starter. Drake London, he's been in a tough spot, of course, whether it be the inept Desmond Ridder or the gunslinging Taylor Heineke, who has not really done that tremendously well after taking over for Desmond Ridder, much to Arthur Smith's mustache's chagrin. And Garrett Wilson, of course, is a tremendous piece on this side, but when you look at essentially Stroud and a second for Garrett Wilson, Drake London, and a first, I'm going the Stroud side. And again, this is super flex. You're going to, initially at least, lean towards the better quarterback side. And again, if I'm seeing that, Alec Pierce is nice. He's a nice addition. I liked him coming out of Cincinnati. I thought he would do more. But he hasn't, really, to this point. He's really just an ancillary piece. I don't know if we're going to get much out of him, especially with Josh Downs coming in and just blowing the doors off. But Stroud, Alec Pierce, 2024 second, taking that side, yes. And jumping over to the third deal. So third and final deal, 12 teams, start 10, PPR, half point 10 in premium. This one's clean and simple. This is a 1-for-1. This is cross-positional. This is quarterback for running back. It's an interesting one in the sense of what we would think this would look like at the beginning of the season versus now. CJ Stroud for Bijan Robinson. I would take CJ Stroud. And part of this has to do with its super flex. Part of this has to do with how Arthur Smith has utilized Bijan Robinson, touting that, of course, Tyler Algier is an elite goal line running back, regardless of when people post on Twitter talking about the efficiency metrics of both Bijan and Tyler Algier. But, really looking at it, again, this is huge when you look at, wow, could I get a top 10, top 5, whatever you may put him at, quarterback in Dynasty for Bijan Robinson, who, again, it's not to say that, if you think to next season, there's been talks that Arthur Smith is not expected to lose his job. Again, I don't know why the Falcons would say that now unless they actually were going to fire him. So he could very well lose his job after the season, and he just wasn't told that. But CJ Stroud, I feel like at this point you trust that. He is the starting quarterback for the Texans. He has an established connection with the weapons that are currently there. You have no reason to believe that any of those weapons are going to be leaving or anything like that by next season. If anything, they're going to add to it as they maybe look to improve the line. They look to add another weapon, look to improve the defense, so it takes a bit of the load off of CJ Stroud. So all in all, I think it's kind of a no-brainer taking CJ Stroud there. Taking Bijan in this instance, maybe for some people, I know we're about halfway in the season or a little more than halfway through the season. I guess there's still some name recognition, some name value with Bijan, but we've had enough of this season to properly evaluate what the Falcons are kind of doing with him. And again, picking him in the first and then using him in the way they have, tremendously confusing. And the Falcons, of course, play in one of the worst divisions in football. So despite how they've utilized him and despite the quarterback play and everything, they're still in the hunt. So I guess they're not really being penalized for how all of that's gone. But yeah, if it's CJ Stroud and Bijan Robinson, I'm going CJ Stroud, period. So that wraps it up for the third of 3 deals related to Dynasty trades involving CJ Stroud. As I mentioned before, my name is Chu. Check me out on Twitter and here, of course, on YouTube at Father Dynasty. Thank you for stopping by. And if you have any interest in checking out some of the merch, of course, jump down the description and check that out on bonfire.com. Got a couple of different options. Got the classic Father Dynasty. Got I Traded for the 101. Got Dynasty Daddy. Great options there. But again, check those out. You got Daddy10 for the promo code to get 10% off. And let me know in the comments any of these 3 trades, any trades that maybe you have done as it relates to CJ Stroud in the last week or so. Drop those in there. Let me know what you think about these 3 trades. And happy Dynasty.